I want to obviously talk about the book.
Yes.
Talk about your career. But first, the other day, a young pitcher named Armando Galarraga.
Ooh.
You guys hear about this? Pitches what should have been a perfect game. Ground ball, last out, 2 outs in the 9th inning, ground ball. First baseman steps off to field it. Pitcher covers, throws him out. He's out. Everybody agrees he's out now.
He's out.
But the umpire calls him unbelievably safe. Perfect game, ruined. So the question is, everybody's weighing in on it. It's the national chatter. But as a ball player, when that kind of thing happens, and it doesn't happen often, obviously, but if something akin to that happened, what's the scene in the clubhouse afterward? What do you say to the guy?
I'll tell you what. You probably don't say anything at first because Galarraga, well, first of all, he handled it very well. Yeah. But they're probably in the locker room playing the replay from like every angle, including the sun, the moon, and the earth. So we used to watch video all the time. Anytime there's a bad call, you'd go out there and look at it over and over again. But any way you look at it, and in this case though, the umpire did admit that he made a mistake. But unfortunately, that doesn't help Galarraga in his perfect game. But So
what's your take? Should Bud Selig have said, we're going to make an exception and call it a perfect game?
No.
No? Okay.
No. Bud Selig does a lot of things like that, but I think he made the right call. I think Bud stepped back and said, you know what? It's not my place. Umpires, human element. This is part of the game. Unfortunately, he missed the call, and you move on. I was actually surprised, though. The umpire actually came out. Like, usually, they let it go, or they kind of take their position. Hey, we made our call. But he did, make a speech about making a mistake, so that was something that's different for most players.
Well, let's now switch gears and talk a little bit about the book. And it's not an autobiography. It's a book, really, it goes into your career, but it's a book kind of about what it's like to be a ball player every day. And one of the things that struck me more than anything else in the book, and there's so many fun tidbits about it, was something you said is that, and I'm going to get the quote wrong, but basically that fear is a big part of a major leaguer's existence. And I was hoping that you could kind of go into that a little.
Yeah, no, that's actually how my writing career really kicked off, actually. I was watching the coverage about the Mitchell Report, which exposed all the drug culture in baseball. And they were naming names in this list, and there was policies about how to change the drug culture. And, I was a little frustrated because there was a lot of name-calling, name-naming, or let's have the head of this guy or that guy. And I thought there was a huge void in the conversation. And as a player, I definitely... I chose to play clean, and obviously, I probably look like a guy who's on steroids, right? But I chose to play clean my career, but I also could understand my teammates and why they made certain decisions. And so, yes, you can see the stakes were high, right? The money through the roof, the fame. You want to hold on to your career, but then the other side of it is everybody wants your job all the time. You always hear that phrase, well, you know how many people would give their left arm to do that? Well, that's how many people are trying to take your job. So every day you go to the stadium and go to the park, you feel like you're one step away from being in another profession. So you have young guys coming up, and they're setting up their locker right next to yours, saying, hey, here's the Marlon Byrd era. And I can relate, because I was in Philly when Marlon Byrd was in Philly, and the Marlon era Byrd came in, and I was supposed to teach my replacement how to replace me. That's how quickly it happened in a 5-year cycle. So these guys are afraid. They're genuinely afraid to get old, because at 33, 34, see you later. All of a sudden the door closes on you. They're afraid of the next guy taking their job. And it's not just about competing against the guy in the other dugout. It's the guy next to you who's also a center fielder who also wants to play every day. So I think fear is a huge part, or the anxiety of not knowing you're going to be in this game tomorrow is a big part of the decision making some of these players make.
And part of that, what you discuss is that after you leave the game, you might be in some ways financially secure. In other ways, you might have made bad investments. But for many players, including at times yourself, you retire at a young age, or you're forced out at a young age, and you're lost for a little while.
You're absolutely lost. And I felt like I was pretty prepared. I have a degree in engineering and all these possibilities, but the fact is, this is what you've done for, in my case, 15 years. And that's how you've made your living. That's what you know. There's a rhythm of your life of playing every day, competing. All of a sudden you're home and you're like, what happened? And I pretty much chose to leave early. I got released by the New York Yankees in 2005. spring training, and then I had an offer from the Padres to go back to the minor leagues. I was like, minor leagues I'm done with that.
Also the Padres.
Yeah, it's like the Padres, but well, they're good. They're actually good this year. But at the time, they were terrible. So, but no, I really felt this weight of like, okay, what am I going to do next? And I realized that the typical story is, all right, now I've, didn't end on my own terms, right? Keep in mind, it's not like, oh, I hit the game-winning grand slam and I'm now going to retire. No, it's probably you broke your leg sliding into second base. You didn't recover well, or, the team says you can't throw that fastball anymore. It's only 85 miles an hour. See you later. So you don't end on your own terms. So you're home and you're sort of lost. A lot of people who are married, they're trying to figure out, wait a minute, who is this person? I haven't been around for 15 years. And you're going to try to be a parent again when your kids are like used to you being gone. You've never had a resume, never did a job interview, and you're 35 years old trying to figure out what's next. So it's a major adjustment for these players, and there's no services from the league to be like, hey, here's some tools to develop. It's just like, hey, you're set for life because you made X dollars, and I think that's very short-sighted.
On a more comical note, you discussed Brawls a little bit.
Right.
Ozzie Guillen. What happened?
Gave me a stiff neck. He gave me a stiff neck for 3 days. Well, we were in Atlanta, and our pitcher was Paul Bird. And Paul Bird is pretty much blind as a bat, and he's a pitcher, so that's pretty scary for most hitters. One of his former teammates was Eddie Perez, who was the catcher, and he's also a countryman of Ozzie Guillen in Venezuela. And Bird just had a control problems. He hit Eddie in Philly. Then we go to Atlanta. He hit Eddie again. So Guillen, of course, being the rabble rouser he is, you're gonna take that, my countryman. ¿Qué pasa contigo? He's talking all this trash. So Eddie decided to try to take out our second baseman, and our second baseman got the best of him. He tried to slide and knock him out, and the second baseman elbowed him in the head or whatever. So now he's really mad. So Bird comes to, the pitcher that hit him comes to home plate to hit, and of course Eddie's standing right there. So of course Eddie jumps him. And they're scrapping, and I'm on deck like, I guess I got to get in this mess, So I run in, and I'm not one of those fools that charge them out and take their helmet off. Like, what are you thinking? Like, I went in with my helmet. Of course, I came out without my helmet. That's a whole other story. But needless to say, I'm in the pile. People are stepping on you. Ozzie Guillen's talking trash the whole time, and
they're talking. They're not just fighting. You're talking.
Yeah, there's conversations because you can't do anything. Your arms are pinned. You're just like, well, I'll just hang out here. And one of the two guys that started the fight were actually praying in the pile. They said, "Oh, please," I was like, "They're praying in the pile." So it turned out they were Bible study partners when they played together in Atlanta. And they decided they made a mistake in fighting each other, and they wanted to make amends while everybody's like trying to rip each other's head off. So, and it was just total chaos. Our bullpen coach ran in from left field and pulled a hamstring halfway to the pile. And, it was a mess. But for the most part, I concluded that most people don't know how to fight. I don't know how to fight, really. I'll tell you that right now. So don't have too many drinks. But the thing is, like, most people don't know how to fight, and plus your livelihood depends on your body. So you're not going to try to punch somebody and break your hand and not play for 6 weeks. So I think it's mostly a circus act and, something that's just sort of bravado, but nobody really does very much.
But it did end with Guillen dragging you by the head.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed the whole point. Guillen, since my arms and legs were pinned under the pile, I couldn't get out. So I decided I'll just lay there and wait for someone to bring me a cocktail. And Guillen decides the smart thing to do is to pull me out of the pile by my head. And being my legs were pinned, I didn't move. So he just stretched my neck. And I'm trying to tell you, that is my neck. That's my head, Ozzie. So next 3 days, I was like, couldn't really turn around. I remind him that every time I'm in Chicago and see him.
One of the other things that I found fascinating, we're all in the stands, we're watching you guys, but it turns out you're watching us.
Watching you, that's right.
How?
That's absolutely right.
One of the things, you're center field, you got a great vantage point, but what are you seeing?
Well, baseball players have to have good eyes. That's your job. So, 2010, 2015, it's key. But, at the same time, you realize as you mature in the game, you get a little more comfortable in taking in the whole picture. I mean, when you're a rookie, you're sitting there staring at the pitcher. You want to make sure the manager's not mad at you. You're looking, and then slowly you realize, wait a minute, there's a whole world out here. There's somebody in the 12th row. This cute girl just walked in from wherever, and your guys start looking around. So I eventually learned how to look around, and I could see my dad came in the 5th inning. And we used to scare people to death at the end of the game because they'd come visit and they'd say, I got to the game. I said, yeah, I saw you came in the 6th inning. It's like, did you see that? It's like, yeah, I did see that actually. Well, aren't you watching the game? Like, yeah, I'm watching the game, but I can see you with my 4th eye.